Breaking right now, major developments in the Reform UK party. The Times reports that Nigel has tightened his grip on Reform UK with the departure of the party's long-serving chief executive. Now, this is Paul Oughton, who had served as the boss since Reform was known as the Brexit Party. But he's been asked to step aside, with Farage taking on Oughton's shares. Richard Tice owns 33% of Reform, which is a private limited company. Now, Companies House shows that Oughton ceased his role on August the 12th, and Reform UK spokesperson has said the party has decided to sunset the CEO role as part of a shake-up of the party's structure. That hasn't pleased the former deputy leader of Reform UK, though, who says it is vital Reform UK is democratised to form a government in 2029. It needs to morph from being an insurgency to a proper political party. That means, amongst other things, giving members the power to change the leadership. Fingers crossed. But that's not going to happen, is it, Calvin Robinson? Because the thing is, Nigel Farage, whether you like it or not, used to have a very senior role in your new party, UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party. He didn't like democracy in that party because it meant that UKIP did things like consider linking up with Tommy Robinson, which he considered would be electoral suicide. So Nigel wants to keep control of Reform UK, like it or not. And it's his company, so can't he do that?
He can, but he will be being a politician and lying to his people, because one of the promises he made in the last election was that he will turn the Reform Party into a democratic party with real members. And so on their website, they're lying to people, because on the website, they say you can join as a member. You can't join as a member. You can subscribe. You can give them money, just like a pyramid scheme. But you don't become a member. You don't get any democratic rights, unfortunately. So they do need to address that. And the fact that they got rid of their deputy chair, Ben Habib, who's a very good man, at the very time that Ben Habib, and I was in Ben's office, so I know this firsthand, Ben wrote to Nigel Farage saying we need to democratise the party. We need to actually make it so we have members, we have voting, we have policies, and that people can get on board. And it's not just the Nigel Farage show. As much as I love you, Nigel, these would have been Ben's words, not mine. But Ben got sacked the next day. And so now we see that the CEO has also been sacked. And where does all that power go? Well, Nigel Farage has already got a few jobs. He's already doing GB News. He's already supposedly a local MP. He was in Clapton today for the first time, actually, which is great to see that he actually found his constituency. I hope he does some casework for them and helps them in ways that an MP should. But the fact that he's taken this party, this company by the reins, shows that he's a control freak. And it's not good, because Reform, of all the parties going, Reform is one of them that has a bit of momentum behind it right now. So if he turned
But that's because of him, though, Calvin. That would be the argument. It's because of Farage. And is this not a bit like Trump and the Republican Party? Actually, if you're not on board with Trump, there's no point being in the Republican Party, because he is now the Republican Party, just like Farage is Reform UK.
No, not at all. If we look at the GOP, look at the RNC that happened the other day, that the Republican National Conference, none of that was very Trumpian. In fact, I found some of it quite woke, and I got into a bit of trouble about it. But there's certainly a wider party that Trump is a part of, and that should be the case in all political parties. The Conservative Party, Boris Johnson was a big charismatic figure, but he certainly wasn't the whole party. The membership are important, the parliamentary party are important, and also CCHQ has probably too much influence at the moment, but it's also important. So you have to have a system. Even the Labour Party has a system. The only reason Jeremy Corbyn got into a position of power is because lots of people paid £1 to become a member and have a vote on the leadership, and they said we want him rather than Ed or his brother. And so we have to have a voice for the people. That's the whole democratic system that we live in. So when Nigel Farage says, no, it's just the Nigel Farage show, yes, he has a lot of fans and he gets a lot of attention, but he won't get into a government. He won't get into a position of major power or influence in this country if it's just about him. That won't work. That won't fly with the British people, unfortunately.
But there's no Reform UK really without Farage, is there? It was Farage entering the race that I think led them to get 5 MPs. And Calvin, I am predicting, and I know a lot of folk will think I'm crazy, but clearly Ben Habib thinks it's possible. I am predicting Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister at the next election, assuming that Starmer goes full term.
Nigel's getting in his own way. Yes, the Reform Party is where it is because Nigel joined back again. But unless he fixes it and makes it a democratic system, he will be the end of it. So he was the start of it. He will also be the end of it. It will be on his deathbed, unfortunately, unless he can get his own ego out of the way, his own narcissistic tendencies out of the way, and think about the people first and foremost. Unless he can do that, the party is not going to succeed, and he will not become prime minister. I can't imagine. I don't know where you're getting this from, Dan. I can't imagine it.
I think so. I mean, look, Calvin, I know you're back as their chief spokesman, which is a great move for UKIP, one of the really sensible things they've done. But can't you actually argue, Calvin, that the moment Nigel left UKIP sort of ended as an electoral force?
Well, no, it's still one of the parties that has a lot of legacy, a lot of name recognition, and actually, when people are looking around for an alternative and a party they can actually join and have some say in and be a part of and work towards changing as well as changing the country, UKIP is one of the few that offers that, actually. And so it's still on the centre right or the right of British politics, the new right, as we're calling it, and it's unashamedly British, it's unashamedly Christian for the most part. It's just saying this is what we believe as a country. We haven't changed. People around us may have. They may have gone woke, they may have gone liberal, they may have gone Mohammedan, but the UKIP party hasn't. Even Reform, unfortunately, has a Mohammedan chairman, as you know. And so when everything else is changing, we are here.
Okay, so you are not considering a deal with Reform UK, UKIP?
That's above my pay grade. But what I would say is that I think deals are important. I also think talking to each other is important. If you remember, my show was the only one where we managed to get all of the parties on and have a conversation. And I was just sitting there as an impartial advisor to them all, saying, look, get it together. The right of British politics needs to work together, whether that's a deal or whether it's just an arrangement or whether it's just being friends with each other and sharing common goals. So the right of British politics does need to work together in some way, shape or form to, first of all, eradicate the Conservatives for good, but then to replace them with something better. And now is a good time for that. Now we have an opportunity.
With the Conservative Party in turmoil, Calvin, there is an opportunity, but not surprisingly, the drumbeat around Tories has already gone back to the idea of BBB. Bring back Boris Johnson. Sophie Corcoran has written in The Spectator Australia, we Brits never realised how good we had it under Boris Johnson. Like me, she was always a supporter of Boris, thought it was a big mistake that he was forced out. But now, interestingly, Robert Jenrick, who is becoming a favourite to actually win the leadership over Kemi Badenoch, has said that he would like Boris Johnson to return. And in a new interview in the past couple of hours with the Daily Telegraph, he said he would be pleased to welcome him if he wanted to return to Parliament. Now, that's a dramatic shift in position from the one held by Rishi Sunak. And Jenrick was asked by the Daily Telegraph, can you see a world where you're Prime Minister and Boris Johnson is at the cabinet table? And he said yes, because we need the best people. And if Boris wanted to be part of that, I'd be delighted. Now, I like Robert Jenrick a lot, but I do have a news flash to Robert Jenrick. You would be in Boris Johnson's cabinet. You know, Boris Johnson is not coming back to serve in a Robert Jenrick cabinet or a Robert Jenrick front bench, opposition front bench. I do think, and I've always thought it's possible, Calvin, that at some point Boris Johnson might return before the next election if it's looking like it's possible that the Conservative Party could beat Labour, a struggling, failing Labour. I think the Reform UK Party will make that a lot harder for Boris Johnson to do, but we remember he fantasises about making a Churchillian comeback. Churchill famously booted out by the British public immediately after World War II, but he did return for that second term as PM.
Look, I was on Team Boris. I thought he's one of the few people that had an opportunity to make a difference in this country. Unfortunately, he fell at the first hurdle. No one saw COVID coming, of course, but he didn't handle it well, and he disregarded his libertarian principles.
It was such a shame.
It was a massive shame, but then the party imploded around him and ousted him with a massive coup d'etat. And unfortunately, those days, that's all over and done with now. I can see him coming back to politics, absolutely. I can even see him serving in a Robert Jenrick cabinet, because Boris is one of the few politicians, as much as I disagree with his stance on COVID, he's one of the few politicians that actually still believes in service, duty and obligation. He still thinks that a politician's job is to represent their constituents, believe it or not. Not many do these days. So I think he would actually take a back seat, but his profile is too big that it wouldn't work. So he will probably join Jenric's cabinet, but he would outshine Jenric quite easily. Jenric doesn't have a lot of charisma. He's quite smart, but he's no Boris Johnson.
Yeah, he's saying some good stuff, though, because I read this interview with the Daily Telegraph, and he finally was the first Conservative candidate who was actually prepared to criticise Keir Starmer in terms of his response to the so-called far-right riots. He said that he felt Keir Starmer was too selective and squeamish in the way in which he spoke about the recent riots and disturbances. So I think he's making the right noises, put it that way. Certainly, I'm more comfortable with him, Calvin, than I am Kemi Badenoch. I've only promised to talk to you about products on this show that are actually life-changing. This one's personal, but I know the guys watching will get it. And ladies, let me tell you, this is the best possible gift for your husband or boyfriend. They will be so grateful. Because men want grooming to be a one and done deal. So the days of using the same trimmer for all parts of your body are over, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep you trimmed from 12 till 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedge. Now, you know I'm not talking about this type of lawnmower, but a product that provides precision trimming for all areas, even the sensitive ones, to get you as manicured as freshly cut grass. I'm talking about a trimmer for the moneymaker, another for the boys downstairs. This trimmer gets it right the first time. It's gentle on your skin and all the delicate places with 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. You can choose between a precise trim or a smooth finish. And did I mention it's waterproof, which means you can trim in the shower and avoid making a mess everywhere. Then let me tell you about the Beard Hedger. So whether you're going for a neat stubble or full-on lumberjack look, this trimmer will have you covered. It features a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade and 20 length options, so you can achieve any style you want just by twisting the zoom wheel. And just like the lawnmower, the Beard Hedger is also waterproof, so you can handle your beard in the sink or shower and not worry about water damage. It has 60 minutes of runtime and an LED charge indicator. You will never be caught mid-trim with a dead battery. This is a gentle product too. No more cuts. Keep your loved one happy. Increase your confidence. And guess what? You get 20% off and free shipping. All you need to do is use the code Outspoken when you check out at manscaped.com. I used it the other day. Huge discount when you take it into account. So just visit www.manscaped.com. Use the code Outspoken. No more juggling, multiple tools, or dealing with subpar results. Just efficient, effective grooming wherever you need it. For the premium grooming experience, trust Manscaped. But look, I also want to discuss, and Nicholas, I'll come to you first on this, because Nigel Farage has sacked the chief executive of Reform UK, and some major figures within the party, like the former deputy leader Ben Habib, really worried about this. Calvin Robinson, Father Calvin Robinson, he now represents UKIP, but he's really worried about this too. As a proud young member of Reform UK, are you concerned that it doesn't seem like Nigel is taking seriously the calls for him to democratise the party?
Well, look, as a young reformer, and I have been involved in the process. I'm not going to specify to what extent I've been involved in the process of attempting to democratise the party. I can assure you right now that Nigel Farage is taking this issue extremely seriously. He is committed to democratisation, and you're going to see that at the party conference at the NEC in Birmingham from September 20th to the 21st, where a bunch of brand new, beautiful initiatives to democratise the party are going to be announced, hopefully including some that I've worked on. I'm still waiting to hear back regarding that. However, I've had many very, very, very lovely discussions with the heads of the party. Zia Youssef, our new chairman, for example, is an absolutely fantastic man with a terrific vision. And Richard Tice is a truly wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man, as well as his partner, Isabel Oakeshott. But look, Farage is, of course, taking a tighter grip at the party right now because the party is in its infancy. We've got 5 MPs. We're nurturing a plant right now. We want to make sure it grows to be a beautiful, beautiful birch tree that can withstand the test of time. And I think right now it's good that Farage is taking the ball by the horns and really taking over the party right now. However, as I said, come the 20th of September, some beautiful new democratization measures will be announced and everything's going to be absolutely hunky-dory, and I have complete 100% faith in Nigel. I know him. He's a very nice man, very responsible man, and above all, he is a very competent man, and he is the man who I want leading the charge against the establishment.
Well, that sounds positive. Anna Ireland, where do you stand on this one?
Well, being in the USA, I don't know so much about the internal workings of Nigel, but I do know that in the USA, he's got a lot of respect
He does,
and
yeah.
people do like him. And he does inspire a lot of confidence in me when I hear him speak and what he's doing. So I think I would place my trust in him.
It was interesting when I was in the US and Florida for those few weeks in the lead up to the most recent election, the only politician who any American ever would even know or talk
Yeah.
about was Nigel Farage, and they tended to love him. But Lucy, where do you stand on this? Do you feel concerned about the fact that Reform UK isn't actually a political party as such? It's registered as a company, which means that Nigel and Richard Tice own all the shares. They effectively call the shots.
Honestly, I think he's the only chance we've got. And I agree with Nick and Calvin, to be honest. I think it took, well, seemingly took quite a lot for him to actually go and do this. And he doesn't strike me as a man that just does things without putting his all into it. And I think the things that have come out, like today and last week and whenever it was, it doesn't, I don't think it looks great, honestly, but I don't think we can just assume that it's not good. I think, sorry, sometimes I can't get my words out.
No, I know what you're saying. It's almost like perception versus reality, because
Yeah,
the perception of it is that Nigel wants to have a stranglehold on the party. I would argue that the reality is that he went through UKIP. It was him who turned UKIP into such a political force, and he felt he learned lessons from that, which was that he did lose control of the party. And while there are a lot of people who think UKIP went in the wrong direction, for Nigel it was always very important to keep it within the mainstream spectrum, I guess. So yeah, it's a tough one, but I actually think both Lucy and Nick are right in terms of saying Nigel is our hope. And if the way for him to end up being Prime Minister in 2029 is for him to have a firm grip on Reform UK, to not allow the mainstream media to find ways to bring it down, I don't have a huge issue with it. But I look forward to hearing about these democratisation advancements, which Nick says are going to come at the party conference, which is going to be a big deal next month. I've got all the MPs speaking, Dear Yusuf speaking as well, and also Ant Middleton. He's an old friend of mine. He used to come on my GB News show, but you might know him from the big SAS series on Channel 4, and he's the big star speaker at the Reform UK conference. Now, of course, the surge of Reform UK has become a huge issue for the Conservative Party. And not surprisingly, the leadership contenders are being asked now whether we need to bring back Boris Johnson. And Robert Jenrick has become the first of the leadership contenders to say, yep, absolutely, if he wants to return to the party, he can, which is something that Rishi Sunak, as Prime Minister, was never going to allow him to do. So, Anna Ireland, are you a pro-Boris lady?
I think he'll certainly bring some entertainment back if he comes back. And I like Boris. I like listening to him, and I like the things he's done in the past. But whether he should come back or not, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the right move for him now. But Lucy, I have never ruled out the possibility of him coming back before the next election, because just being brutally honest about this, I do not believe whoever is elected to be leader of the Conservative Party this time around is going to be the person that leads them into the next election. I think they're probably going to have a couple of leaders before a potential Prime Minister emerges.
yeah. I used to love Boris, and I never really went off him after all of the sandwich
Partygate. That was such a witch hunt. Yeah.
ridiculous. But I just think the Conservatives as a party now, and I voted for them last time, but I just honestly don't think they're strong enough. I think after what we've seen over the last couple of years, and given the gravity of what we've got to deal with now, I just honestly, I know it sounds, I don't care who their leader is, honestly, because
Yeah.
I just think they, if they were in power, they couldn't deal with it. I don't think they could.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't think it matters
incredible.
who it is.
It's absolutely incredible how quickly they have dived
Yeah.
headfirst into irrelevance. And I
Mm.
feel sad about saying that. I mean, I supported Boris Johnson, especially in 2019. I did speak out against him very strongly over COVID because, as you may know, I was very much opposed to the draconian lockdowns and that sort of thing. But I came back on board because I realised actually he was the one who was fighting behind the scenes to say, stop Christopher Whitty, stop Valence, stop Dominic Cummings. Actually, he did want to let us out, and I think he made some mistakes. But in the end, we were one of the first countries to be free in the Western world, even though, God, let's not go there, but huge mistakes were made. Then I supported Liz Truss, who the establishment immediately turned on because she had an economic agenda that challenged the orthodoxy. But I knew Rishi Sunak was such a disaster. He was always going to be such a disaster. I warned time and time again, was ignored. Sure enough, he was more of a disaster than anyone could thought. The election result was a historic thumping. And the problem is that the Conservatives haven't learned from that result. They are still repeating all of the same old stuff. Oh, maybe we'll leave the ECHR. Oh, maybe we could turn back the boats. No, you've got to do these things. If you're in opposition, actually, you can say them and you can work for 5 years to work out how you would deliver them. But I think, Nick, they almost haven't realised the magnitude of what they're facing, because there is maybe an ingrained arrogance that comes with being a member of the Conservative Party, in that in the first past the post system, two parties usually dominate. But you can look at countries like France, like Germany, like Canada, and see that a two-party system can be smashed. And I know you're going to say that Reform UK is the party to do it. I happen to agree. But do you think Boris Johnson could provide a real threat to Nigel Farage? Because he's probably, Nick, the only politician in the land who challenges Farage when it comes to celebrity status and charisma.
Well, whilst I think Boris Johnson is very funny, nobody's going to take that away from him. He is inherently a very funny figure as a politician, especially as a Conservative politician. He's an absolute joke. He well and truly is a joke. He governed as a faux green who expanded the government's tyranny to incredible levels during the pandemic. And by the way, I very much remember you speaking out against him during the pandemic.
Yes.
And I respected you then, and I respect you even more for doing that now, especially considering everything we've learned about the negative impact of the pandemic on people's mental health and children's development. But no, absolutely not. Boris should never come back. If the Tory party actually want to maintain electoral relevancy, they should keep him as far away as possible, because in my view, Boris Johnson is a liability to the party.
But he's a vote winner, Nick. He is a vote winner.
Yeah. He represents the sleaze of the party. People aren't going to forget Partygate, no matter how stupid and silly that may have been. The vast majority of voters were outraged at the fact, at least at the time, that he was off partying whilst grandma was dying in the ICU. And in my view, he just represents sleaze. He represents a sort of upper crust establishment. He felt like he was untouchable. And that arrogance sort of came into every respect of his governance strategy. And sorry if I'm fumbling my words right now, but I'm acting like Boris in a way. Boris fumbles his words too.
But we forgive him for that. We forgive him for that.
No, I will say this. Boris Johnson, back as Prime Minister or the leader of the Conservative Party, would be an utter disaster for this country, as he would continue to govern as the faux green. He really did reveal his true internationalist, anti-Brexit tendencies. When he was Prime Minister, although he talked a big game about we got Brexit done and all of that, he acted like the Boris Johnson of 2010 who wanted Turkey in the European Union. He was an internationalist through and through, and I just don't trust him. He's a chameleon.
He is a globalist. He is. And when it comes to Ukraine, obviously, he's very much pushing that war. But, Anna, I will always give credit to Boris Johnson for the historic achievement of delivering Brexit. I think people forget how much Brexit was in peril before the 2019 election. You remember those European elections, you remember the complete disaster of Theresa May. So I'm certainly not as tough as Nick when it comes to his legacy, because I genuinely think if it wasn't for that 2019 Boris landslide, Brexit would not have been delivered, certainly not what you or I would consider to be Brexit. And if it wasn't for COVID, Anna, it's one of those cases, it's a bit like Trump. It's like what might have been. They were both terribly derailed by COVID. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.